Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. Today, folks, let's jump into a topic. I guess you could say this topic is really about looking into the future, right? I could welcome you back as a time traveler, but I don't need to do that today. And the reason why we're going to look into the future a little bit, kind of look into our magnifying glass, our telescope into the future, right? And look into it, and let's look at some things and ask ourselves why, right? An example might be obviously with AI being so prevalent and coming online even to such a massive extent over the past couple of few years. Kind of noticed this in 2020 myself as this stuff started to kind of open up and the scene began to kind of, you started to see a little bit of light through the cracks of AI and as so far as what it might be able to do. But some things for us to consider with AI or any advanced technology as we go forward, something we have to come to terms with as human beings who are professionals and who do work and who work in organizations and for ourselves and so on and so forth, is as we roll into the future further and further, there will be some tasks and jobs that will be absorbed by AI. I mean, this is not even a mystery now. This has been part of some discussions already. And I've thought about this previously, even before writing the book. In fact, I have a section in there about AI. But the thing we need to consider is that there will be many roles in society that will be absorbed. Now, not all roles will be absorbed, and not everywhere. The further and more rural you are, right, the more difficult it'll be to automate a lot of different things. And some things are very handsy, very hands on. That being said, it won't necessarily be that all tasks can be relegated to AI and robotics and so on, although many will be able to if we so choose to go down that path. But but it's not so much that all of them will be absorbed, but that most of the low-lying, I would say low-lying, entry level, that's probably the best way to put it, the entry level roles that we're going to have into the future are going to be those uh, of the entry level engineer now, taking care of computer systems, technology, robots, and the rest of it, right? Servicing them, right? It'll be much of that. It won't be all of that. There's some things, as I said before, that we probably won't be able to get away from as it relates to humans doing the work. And that's fantastic. But what does that mean for us humans, right? That's the $1 million question, or who knows what inflation will make that $1 million question, the $1 trillion question. The $1 trillion question is, what does that mean for humanity? Well, what it means is that we have to elevate our capacity professionally and personally to be able to elevate into higher positions in society as the generations roll forward. Now, for those who are on the back end of their career and they're going to be retiring soon, this isn't going to mean much for you. But there are those who are still in the workforce and who are maybe, late junior, mid career. There will be a time when things start to get a little pinchy if the job or the career that you have now is one that maybe gets absorbed, probably a better word, absorbed by AI and robotics, right? So what do we do if you think about having a group of folks who are doing work, and some of this is going to transition into the future? There's going to be a watershed point where some folks may suffer the loss of their career. So what does that mean? If that's an inevitability, right? Not for everybody, not probably not in a mass sense, not a terrible thing. It means we have to start to transition. So this is also one of the, little fingers of my book as well, The Journey to Transform Culture. Transforming culture, you might think of this as like, well, what are we talking about? Transforming culture, we're great, we're fine. Well, we're great, we're fine in this moment, right? But we have to be always growing, always learning, always advancing, always elevating for what? The future, right? It isn't that we're doing this for yesterday and we're not doing, improving today for today. No, we did that. We improved and we elevated in previous years and days and months and for today. But we have to look forward, right? The journey to transform culture, yes, it is about protecting love, right? And this is why I bring this back to the human side of this is we have to begin to transform and transition. Why is that? Because our education, everything that we expected, all of our minimum expectations have to go up. We can no longer be DNF humans anymore. We're going to have to be A and B humans, right? Because we are going to have to be those who are in step with the technologies that will be helping us. And a lot of these technologies, by the way, are going to be the things that allow us to have fresh water, right? Drinking water, allow us to farm more efficiently and so forth. Allow us to do the things that we need as humans to thrive, survive, and thrive, right? If we aren't doing that, if we aren't staying in lockstep and growing, then we will be left to the side. Now, there are those, probably in my age range, if you will, and older, who, yeah, it's not going to affect you a ton, but that doesn't mean that our attitudes and how we mentor, coach, train, and we speak to this won't impact the generations that follow. It will. And those generations will need to follow, but also have a high minded enough and a vibrant approach to these things so that as culture moves forward, they can grow with it rather than being riding the struggle bus, running just barely to keep up. That's not going to work in the future. We will have to evolve as a humanity to get to a place where we can increase our ability to do more complex tasks, to do more, collaborative, innovative, creative things to ensure that our culture moving forward all around the globe is not only satisfied and maintained, but that we are able to thrive in the process, right? It's not enough to say, oh, well, we have to learn these things so we can keep up. No, it's doing so that we can still have enriched lives, so that the generations that follow us have enriched lives, right? This is, in this whole perspective, this whole conversation is with the idea that we're doing this to protect love, right? To protect love in our lives, protect those that we care about, the generations that follow, my kids, my grandkids, yours, and so on and so forth, right? Friends, families, all of them, right? We're not just thinking about our own families and our own communities. We have to be thinking bigger than that. We have to rise above and be bigger than that. We have to elevate our intellect, but at the same time, we have to elevate our heart space, right? We have to be emotionally in tune humans. Okay, we can no longer, we will no longer be able to be to have muted abilities to tap into our emotions and to express ourselves and but to do so not in passive aggressive ways. A lot of these isms are going to have to be dealt with and overcome. Narcissism, sociopathy, all these things. Any ism is going to have to be addressed, and we're going to have to start to get generations to come to start to understand that being addicted to anything, to making an idol of anything, is going backwards, not going forwards, right? Balance. the middle path, the middle path, right? So moderation, the middle path. Don't let anything own you. That which you own owns you, right? So, so, but to be good stewards and to be accountable. These are all things that are, all these character things, all the positive behavior attributes that you can surmise. And look at my book if you need some help with some of these. But a lot of these positive behavior traits are going to have to be what we emphasize. Not that we say, well, this is a good thing and it's just, hey, just be aware of it. No, we are going to have to strive, right? Because as we use this little periscope or telescope to look into the future, we look into that future, folks are more capable, right? Folks are more emotionally sturdy and stable. Folks are able to help one another out, right? We're just going to be more balanced. We have to be more balanced. This isn't pie in the sky talk either, folks. This is all the baggage that people carry through their personal and professional lives in the past gets worked out through their addictions, their codependencies, and everything else, usually ending up in sorrowful loss, betrayals, sorrowful loss, and broken relationships. Doesn't matter, family, friends, community, doesn't matter, right? Even our geopolitical, all these things are fractured. Why are they fractured? They're fractured because we're not seeing everybody as our neighbor, and we definitely aren't loving our neighbor, right? We're falling short, right? Simple task. We're falling short on it, right? We like to pat ourselves on the back, but unfortunately, we've strained our shoulder, patting ourselves on the back for things that haven't occurred yet, for work that's left considerably undone. So, as we peer into the future, we have to come to a very stark reality, and that is business as usual, life as usual is about to come to an end. I don't mean our lives are coming to an end. I'm saying that the way we approach life is about to come to an end because with technology and all these other things, this has been sort of like, if we're a lab pup, right? And I take a tennis ball and I throw it, that lab pup's going to run for that tennis ball. The tennis ball, now we've created this tennis ball. This tennis ball is AI and robotics and technology. And we've been tossing it a few feet in front of ourselves and going, oh yeah, we can kind of keep up with this. We can keep up with this. Well, guess what, folks? You peer into the future and we have chucked that tennis ball significantly further. And why is that? We need to, and we'll probably need to survive and thrive. And we have to take it that seriously, right? Because if we don't, we risk what? We risk the dissipation of all humanity. And we can't just sit back and go, well, that's not my problem. That archaic mindset really just needs to be thrown out with the trash. Okay, keep the peeps, throw out the bad attitudes and the arcane viewpoints there. It doesn't mean that those viewpoints aren't valid. Bring it up, but it's gonna be quickly realized that look, the technology in our watches now is significantly higher than anything that's ever gone into space. Initially, the initial space travel, right? Even our phones, all of that has surpassed in technology. Every one of us has almost, think of this, if you were to go back in time 100 years with your phone, now granted, let's assume that, that you could use it in the same capacity, but let's just say that you didn't need to worry about Wi-Fi and that you had all of the data, your phone's data was filled up. You had the encyclopedia, you had all the information, or at least a lot of it, right? You'd have more information on that little phone than most countries probably have archived in any of their records, right? Any of their libraries, probably all the libraries, right? Think of that. Any one of us or any one of our children or grandchildren now have that level of technology. And what are we doing with it? Don't get me wrong, have fun with the technology. I do as well. But understand, we've been given this great power, and we have to step up to be responsible humans. And we have to step up and realize that we have to start transitioning our mode professionally, personally, all of it across the board. And this is the importance of transforming culture. Transforming culture isn't just, well, it's high, pie in the sky, idealistic. No, it's not. It's the future, folks. And it's coming at you at light speed. So get your Acme rocket rollerblades on and fire those stinkers up and let's get to hopping, right? So let's quit making excuses. Let's get in there, start learning and transitioning and growing in our professional, right, careers and otherwise, so that we can catch that baton and hand it off to the next generation. As we're running together, they can pass us and take off and so on and so forth. And there we go, right? But our attitude has to be in line with this. It can't be like, well, we liked it better when it was 20 or 30 years ago. Everybody in all generations always say that, and it never occurs, okay? It never occurs that we don't progress. But what also seems to be occurring with the fact that that doesn't occur, what seems to be occurring is that, we got half of the crew with their doors open, dragging their feet down the road, while the other half are trying to push the cart, right? So we need to get our feet back in. We need to help push or steer, and we need to help propel this thing forward. Because if you look into that periscope into the future, into that telescope, periscope of the future, right? You peer into that, it could be a beautiful thing. It can be the idealized future. But to get there, we are going to have to look at our lives, look at old traditions, respect and appreciate the journey and the lesson, and let some of those things go. Let go of the old tug of war. Let go of, the silly stuff, and start to mature into our humanity, right? Both intellectually, emotionally, right? Spiritually, all of it. So that if we're there for each other, to protect love for any one of us is to protect love for all of us, right? All for one for all, right? Three Musketeers, right? And think about it. That's true. That's true. If any one of us is losing, we're all losing, right? If any one of us wins, we're not all winning, right? So we have to start looking at the paradigm differently. And, we've reached that place in our history where it's time to begin to seriously transform how we do everything and how we treat each other, right? It's time. Are you ready? All right. All right, folks. That's all for today. Hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage folks. And when you do that, not only we help to transform culture, but we're transforming ourselves, and it's helping us to propel toward that future that we can see through our telescope, periscope, paratelescope to the future, right? All right, folks, hope you're having a great day. Hit like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.